Rack is dead. Let that sink in for a second, because after 5 seasons of Power Book 3 raising Kanan, the woman who built an empire out of nothing, who survived betrayal after betrayal, who outlived almost everyone who ever tried to take her down, is gone. And the person who pulled the trigger wasn't a rival. It wasn't the FBI. It wasn't even Stefano. It was Jukebox. Season 5, Episode 8, the series finale titled Unconditional Love, just aired. And if you thought Episode 7 was brutal, nothing prepared us for how this show decided to end its story. So today we're breaking down exactly what happened in the finale, how Rack really dies, what her final words actually mean, and why that ending changes the way you'll ever watch the original Power series again. The episode opens in the heaviest way possible, with everyone still processing Marvin's murder. Rack and Flossie choose to grieve quietly, holding their pain inside, but Jukebox is a completely different story. She's not sad. She's furious. And that fury has nowhere to go until she sits down with Flossie and finally learns the truth, that it was Kanan who pulled the trigger on her own father. Up until this point, Jukebox had spent the entire back half of this season trusting the wrong people, believing the wrong story, and now the pieces are finally falling into place in the worst possible way. Meanwhile, the streets aren't getting any safer. The police crackdown is tightening around everyone, and business on all sides is collapsing. Breeze discovers that 2 of his own guys, Glenn and Shane, have been talking to the cops, and true to who he's become, he doesn't hesitate for even a second before shutting that problem down permanently. But it's Rack who's really drowning. Pino, the man who once had her back, has officially cut ties, leaving her without a supply chain and without allies. And behind the scenes, Pino is the one who gives Stefano the green light to have Rack killed. Even Stefano, cold as he is, doesn't seem fully on board with that decision, which tells you just how fractured this entire criminal world has become by the finale. While all of this is happening, the police pull both Jukebox and Kanan in separately. Jukebox gets grilled about the deaths of Snaps and Pop, and at the same time, Kanan is being held as a suspect in the murders of Glenn and Shane. Both of them walk away from police custody, but that's when the real war begins, not with bullets in the street, but with a decision that's about to tear this family apart forever. Here's where it gets personal. Jukebox, now fully aware that Kanan murdered her father, sneaks out with Marvin's own gun. She's not looking for closure. She's not looking for an explanation. She is hunting Kanan, waiting for the exact right moment to end his life. And while she's tracking him, Kanan is doing something almost nobody saw coming. He goes to Stefano and personally pleads for Rack's life. He tells Stefano that his mother has given too much to this empire to be erased like this, that she deserves better than a quiet execution. It's the first real moment in a long time where Kanan sounds less like the monster we've watched him become, and more like a son trying to save the one person who made him. Stefano actually listens. But he has a condition. If Rack wants to live, she has to come to the table herself. Not Kanan. Her. So Kanan arranges the meeting. What he doesn't know is that Jukebox is watching every second of it from a distance, gun in hand, finger ready. And what happens next between Rack and Kanan is the most emotionally loaded scene the show has ever given us. Years of resentment, years of silence, years of a mother and son who loved each other but never knew how to show it without hurting one another. All of it comes pouring out in that one conversation. Rack finally admits something we've waited 5 seasons to hear. She failed him. She wasn't the mother he needed. But she also makes it clear that failure doesn't mean the story has to end there, that there's still a chance for them to fix what's broken. And in a moment that catches everyone off guard, Rack and Kanan hug. A real, genuine, long overdue embrace between a mother and the son she raised into exactly the kind of man she used to be. Jukebox sees all of it. And that hug doesn't soften her. Destroys her. Because in that single image, she sees everything that's been stolen from her. A father, a family, a future. While Kanan gets to walk away and rebuild his. Rack, meanwhile, walks away from that meeting and sits down with Stefano, striking a deal that would let her kill Pino and take over his share of the business, putting her right back on top. For one brief moment, it actually looks like Rack is going to survive this. It looks like she's about to win. And that's exactly when the show pulls the floor out from under all of us. Because just when it feels like Rack has clawed her way back from the edge, Jukebox makes her move. And what follows is the single most devastating scene in the entire history of this show. Jukebox doesn't kill Kanan. Her original plan, the one she's been carrying since she picked up that gun, was always to end his life. But the second she sees him wrapped in his mother's arms, something in her shifts. She realizes that killing Kanan won't hurt him the way she needs him to hurt. So instead she turns the gun on Rack. And in that moment, Jukebox forces Kanan to feel exactly what she's been feeling since Marvin died. The unbearable weight of losing the person who made you who you are. What makes this scene even harder to watch is what happens right before Jukebox pulls the trigger. She hesitates. For a second, just a second, there's a flicker of doubt on her face. Almost like some part of her is praying this is all some horrible misunderstanding that Rack can talk her way out of. But Rack, in her final moments, makes the fatal mistake of pretending she doesn't know Kanan killed Marvin. She feigns ignorance. And that lie, that one last attempt to protect her son even as her own life hangs in the balance, is what seals her fate. Right before Jukebox fires, Rack gives her a look, defiant, unshaken, almost daring her to go through with it. And Jukebox does. Rack is gone. The woman who built an empire from the ground up, who outlasted enemies, cops, and her own family's betrayals for 5 straight seasons, dies not in a blaze of gunfire on the street, not in some big cinematic showdown, but quietly, at the hands of the one person who once considered her family. And here's the detail that's going to stay with fans for a long time. In the aftermath, desperate to twist the knife even deeper into Kanan, Jukebox tells him that Rack's actual last words were her begging Jukebox to kill him instead of her. It's a lie. We, the audience, know it's a lie because we just watched what really happened. But that lie is so much crueler than the truth, because in a strange, twisted way, it captures the entire relationship between Rack and Kanan better than anything else could. A mother who claimed she'd always protect her son, reduced in her final imagined words to abandoning him to save herself. Whether Jukebox says it out of pure vengeance or genuine belief almost doesn't matter. The damage is already done. Now here's where the finale takes an unexpected turn. Because instead of ending on Rack's death, the show gives us one more gut punch. Jukebox invites Kanan to a diner and tells him, straight to his face in broad daylight, surrounded by strangers, that she killed his mother. And this is the moment that reveals just how far Kanan has fallen, and how much humanity he still somehow has left buried underneath it all. Because for a man who has become increasingly trigger-happy over the course of this entire season, a man who killed his own uncle without blinking, the thought of ending Jukebox's life right there in that diner barely seems to cross his mind. He goes through shock, grief, and rage in a matter of seconds, but he doesn't reach for a gun. He doesn't retaliate. Some part of him, even now, still sees Jukebox as family, and that hesitation tells you everything about who Kanan really is underneath the monster the streets created. But don't mistake that mercy for forgiveness, because what happens next between these two cousins is almost more chilling than if one of them had just pulled the trigger. Neither of them kills the other. And the reason why is one of the darkest character moments this show has ever written. They let each other live so that they both keep suffering. To survive while everyone you love gets torn away piece by piece. To become a hollowed-out version of yourself while still walking and breathing every single day, that's a punishment far worse than death, and both of them know it. Jukebox even echoes the exact same words her father Marvin once said to Kanan, warning him that he will lose everything and everyone he holds dear until there's nothing left. And Kanan, in turn, promises her the same fate. Two people who have already been destroyed on the inside, standing across from each other in a diner, condemning each other to a slow, permanent kind of grief. While all of this emotional wreckage is unfolding between Kanan and Jukebox, the rest of the finale is quietly setting up everything that comes next in the Power universe. Breeze somehow walks away from this entire war completely unscathed. He survives the finale alive and, more importantly, still standing beside Kanan. We still don't fully know why Breeze never shows up as a major player in the original Power series, and that mystery alone could easily fuel an entire storyline in Power Origins. And then there's Stefano, who ends up being the biggest winner of this entire bloody chapter. While Pino's empire collapses and Rack is gone, Stefano walks away with 2 dangerous, loyal, battle-tested young men now working under him, Breeze and Kanan. But what nobody in that world realizes yet is that a brand new threat is already circling in the shadows. 2 kids who are about to change everything. Because in the final act of this finale, we finally meet them, 2 teenage boys who walk right up to Kanan and Breeze, asking to be let in on the business. And if you know anything about the Power universe, you already know exactly who these kids are. This is Ghost. This is Tommy. Their very first appearance on screen, right here in the Raising Kanan series finale, and it's the moment that quietly bridges everything we've watched for 5 seasons into everything that's coming next. Kanan looks at them, sees 2 kids who remind him of exactly who he used to be, and sends them away, telling them they're too young for this life. But we know better. We know these 2 boys are not walking away from this world. This is only the beginning for them, the same way it was once the beginning for Kanan, and it's almost poetic how the show chooses to close its own story by opening the door to the next one right in front of our eyes. And then, just when you think the finale is done wrecking you emotionally, the show hits you with one final scene after the credits roll, a flashback, taking us all the way back to the moment Rak first held baby Kanan in her arms. She's cooing to him, promising him that as long as she's there, he'll be all right. It sounds like nothing more than a mother's tender promise to her newborn son. But knowing everything we now know, knowing how this story actually ends, that same line becomes almost unbearably tragic. Because in a strange, haunting way, her words turn out to be true. As long as Rak was alive, Kanan had a thread connecting him back to something real, back to a version of himself that wasn't completely lost. And the moment that thread is cut, the moment Jukebox pulls that trigger, there's truly nothing left standing between Kanan and the man we already know he becomes in the original Power series. That's really what this entire finale is about when you strip everything else away. It's not about who wins the war in the streets. It's not even about who lives and who dies. It's about watching the very last door close behind Kanan. The last possible version of his life where things could have gone differently. Rak admitted she failed him. She reached out, even after everything, to try and fix what was broken between them. And for one fleeting moment in that hug, it actually looked like there was still hope. Like maybe this family had one more chance to be something other than what the streets demanded of them. But that hope is exactly what gets ripped away. And in the cruelest twist possible, it's ripped away by the person who once loved Kanan just as fiercely as his own mother did. What hits hardest is that nobody in this story is purely a villain and nobody is purely innocent. Rak spent years failing as a mother, but she still tried, right until her very last breath, to protect her son one final time. Jukebox spent this entire season as the moral center of the show, the one person still capable of real love and real loyalty, and by the end, grief and betrayal turn her into someone who commits the exact same kind of violence she always hated Kanan for. And Kanan himself, the boy who once just wanted to make his mother proud, ends this story having lost every single person who ever truly loved him, left standing completely alone at the top of an empire that cost him everything that ever mattered. That's the real tragedy buried underneath all the guns and the power struggles. Raising Kanan was never just the story of how a boy became a kingpin. It was the story of how a family destroyed itself trying to survive a world that never gave any of them a real way out. And honestly, that's what makes this ending so much more powerful than any shootout or takeover ever could have been. This show didn't need a massive final battle to leave us shattered. All it needed was one hug, one lie, one gunshot, and 5 seasons of history behind it, and suddenly we understood exactly why Kanan becomes the man we meet in Power. We watched it happen in real time. We watched every choice, every betrayal, every small moment of love that got crushed under the weight of survival, and by the time that gun goes off it doesn't feel like a twist. Feels inevitable. Feels earned. And that's exactly why this finale is going to stay with fans for a very long time. So now it's your turn. After everything Rak went through, after everything she sacrificed and everything she failed to give, do you think she deserved this ending or did Jukebox go too far? Do you think Kanan will ever truly forgive her? Or is this the moment that finally turns him into the man we already know he becomes? And now that we've officially met Ghost and Tommy on screen, are you ready for Power Origins to pick up right where this story left off? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to know what you think. And if this breakdown helped you make sense of everything that just happened in this finale, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next breakdown the second it drops, and turn on notifications because Power Origins is coming, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next.